everyone, welcome back to this new video on this channel, Young Pilgrims. My name is Anna, and in today's video we are going to talk about the union as it was since the beginning, based on chapter 2 verses 4 through 25 of Genesis. And in last week's video it talked about Shabbat, the day of rest for humanity, which was based on the first 3 verses of chapter 2 of Genesis. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about the union, how I had mentioned. And in verses 4 through 14, we can see that these verses continue to narrate how the origin of the heavens and the earth how they were, and especially how the Eternal formed Adam. It tells us that he took from the red earth, which in Hebrew is Adamah, and he formed it. The word for forming in Hebrew is Yatzar, which means to mold into a shape, specifically like the potter. Going to recreate, forge, make, etc. In other words, the Eternal shaped him like clay in the hands of a potter, and then breathed into his nose, and thus Adam was a living soul. In chapter 1 of Genesis, he also talks about this, but in a shorter way. I would like to mention it because it contains something that perhaps in this chapter 2 we do not see so clearly. And it says in verse 27 of chapter 1, "And Elohim created the man in his image. In the image of Elohim he created him. Male and female he created them." And how I had mentioned, how I had said before, I wanted to mention this because this verse reveals something else to us. Because although in most of our Bibles Adam is translated as a man, its meaning in Hebrew leaves us with a greater understanding. In the Strong Dictionary of the Hebrew 120, we see that it means reddish, a human being, individual, or the species, humanity, Adam, common people, human people. We see in chapter 1 that it tells us that he created them, male and female, but at the same time, Adam is spoken to, and we see that the Eternal from the beginning created a human being, which was asexual. Nor can it be said that it was female or male, which is known as androgen. That is to say, it was a being like the Almighty that is not defined as a man or much less as a woman. As a woman, because he does not have a sex. He is all in himself, and with the same nature he created, or he made Adam, as well as the angels. But later we will see that the Eternal separates this being into a male, which the correct way in Hebrew is Ish, and female, which is Icha. And in the beginning, they were one. And in verses 15 through 17, we can see that it is narrated that the Eternal put Adam in the Garden of Eden and gave him instructions about not taking from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And as we can read later, they transgress this instruction. And the fall of the human occurs as a reflection of what had already happened previously in the heavenly places with the fall of the adversary. And now getting into the union theme, we begin to look at verses 18 18 through 20 that say, "And Elohim said, it's not good for the man to be alone. I am going to make a helper for him, and his counterpart, as his counterpart. And from the ground Elohim formed every beast of the field and every bird of the heavens, and brought them to the man to see what he would call them. And whatever the man called each living being, that was its name. So the man gave names to all livestock, and to the birds of the heavens, and to every beast of the field. But for the man there was not found a helper for him as his counterpart." And this is something that contrasts with what it says in in chapter 1 of Genesis. Because until that moment, it was said that everything that the Eternal created was good. But this is the first time that the Almighty mentions that something is not good, which is not good that man is alone with himself. As we know, Adam had a supreme position in the creation. He was commissioned to dominate everything the Eternal had done, and by naming each animal and making sure that each one had their partner. That is when he realized that he was the only one without a partner. Adam was created in the Creator's likeness, and one of the Creator's attributes is to be a value. Adam realized that he had no one to give. He had no one like him to love him. Now, the question is, would the Eternal forget to create this help for Adam? The answer is no. There is nothing that escapes from the Eternal's or from the Creator's control. Rather, the Eternal made Adam see the need he had for a help like him. Because although, yes, he was a governor or the governor of all creation, he still needed someone in front of him who would accompany him and in return remind him that despite being the governor of all creation, he needed someone else so that he would not get to boast from his position, but to balance it. It's like a balance. Adam was in the supreme part, but he needed another part to be in balance. And well, to go a bit deeper about it, I like that we analyze what is the meaning of help in front of him, or as most of us know it as ideal help. Its meaning in Hebrew tells us a lot about the role of a woman. This name is translated as Ezer Kenegdo, and if we divide it to understand its meaning, we see that Ezer means necessary help and not imposed from a strong towards a weak. Que, which means similar or like, and neged, which means front, opposite, and counterpart. We see how the Eternal will make that help similar to him, and that was in front. An opposite part that would be a complement to his life to have balance and fulfillment. We read in Proverbs 18 verse 22 that says, He who has found a wife has found good and receives favor from Elohim. Adam needed that other part that was good, that the Eternal will give him. Now, how was it that the Eternal gave him this ideal help or help in front of him? Well, we see in verses 21 through 23 that say, So Elohim caused a deep sleep to fall on the man, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh in its place. Verse 22. And the rib which Elohim had taken from the man, he made into a woman, and he brought her to the man. Verse 23. And the man said, This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. This one is called woman, because she was taken out of the man. We see here that Elohim formed a woman after Adam, and when he was separated is when the male, that is each, and female, which is Isha, arises. That is to say, two individual beings. In verse 21, it says that it took one of his ribs, or that Elohim took one of Adam's ribs, but in Hebrew, the meaning is even deeper, since the word rib is referenced as Hebrew 6763, which is pronounced salah, which literally means side of a person or figuratively of an object. This teaches us one of the purposes of the woman, which is to be that necessary complement for the man. The other side, that the man needs to be a whole and full. This is why when he sees her, he tells her that this is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. In short, a part of himself with which he would be in unity. And while in verse 24, it tells us why. It says, For this cause a man shall leave his father and mother, and cleave to his wife, and they shall. And well, although Adam and Eve, as most of us know, Adam and Eve did not have parents, obviously. They didn't have parents, they didn't have parents. Well, but this instruction is given for the next generations to teach that although they were already two separate people, they should return to join as they were from the beginning, live with one flesh, and to take this step, they must leave their parents. This doesn't mean abandoning them, misunderstanding them, or forgetting their parents, but reaching that maturity where there is that spiritual in deep endings and intention that a new family is going to be formed in union with another person, where both would be responsible for their own decisions and actions, and later will have the work of raising and educating their own children. Yeshua also mentions this issue when being asked about the divorce, and we can find this in Matthew 19, where the Messiah teaches us the need to return to the original purpose of being one flesh, of being unity, no longer living as two separate people, but as one. When we decide to unite with another person, we must let go of our parents, how I had mentioned. We have that example of Rebecca, who when being asked if she would go with Adam's servant, she said yes. She decided to go to the person who would be his future husband. And will there form a family with him. In her, we can see the maturity and that she understood her purpose as a woman. And that is something that we can both apply, such as women and men. Yeshua also talks about the separation and makes it clear that it goes against the purpose of the Eternal. The Eternal did not create the union so that it failed, so that it would go its separate ways. But because of the hardness of the man's heart, or the human's heart, it is that this has happened, that we see that a lot of people have divorced and have gotten married plenty of times, and that have a lot of kids of different women or different men. For this reason, it is understood that in order to become a single person and retake this original plan of the Creator, joining another person implies that we have to destroy our own ego, because when we destroy it, then love comes out. That is why it is important to understand our role, such as men and women. And well, this is going to help us set limits and maintain that balance. We know that the man has a purpose to be the head of the place. He has to take care of his family, making sure that his place has a necessary sustenance, and at its time, he is a minister of his house, and he has to bring and guide his family to the correct path, to the scriptures of the Eternal. And such as a woman, she has to take care of the children. She has to, well, each woman and men have their own roles, and that is how, if these two, such as men and women, have these roles and complete these roles that are required to them, that is when there is an even balance, and there isn't misunderstandings or some stuff like that that will later on lead to a divorce. And well, in verse 25, we read, "And they were both naked, the man and his wife, yet they were not ashamed." We see here that there was transparency. It gives us it gives us to understand that there was communication between them. This is something that must be present in the union, that we present ourselves as we are, and that we express what is necessary at the specific moment, so as not to give rise to the resentment that later causes a divorce. This is said that we have to be honest with each other. If we're going to be in a union, we have to be honest with each other. We have to tell us what, or express what we feel, what we think, and share each other's ideas, so that way, how I had said, there is no misunderstandings. That way, that there aren't no feelings that we have towards that person that we do not express, because it's important to have that communication with each other so that things don't end bad, like a divorce or stuff like that. So it's important to have that connection. And well, in conclusion, our main purpose in life is to first serve the Eternal. And once we have that, or once we have this pre-comfort, then the mission of men and women is, or separately, is to return to the original union, to the original purpose of the union, not as how it is today, that we see that a lot of people get married with or have a lot of marriages, have a lot of children, and then there's like this turns, or there's this these abominable things that happen. For example, that now we see that men with men could marry each other, and women with women could marry each other, and this happens because there is, or because these people didn't or didn't complete its purpose, or they didn't go with the purpose that they have, such as men and women. And that's why we see this disorder in today's world. And or yeah, that we should return to the original purpose of the union, and achieve again that harmony that Adam and Eve had when they were one. We see, for example, when Adam and Eve were kicked out of the Garden of Eden, we see that just that both of them got the same consequences. That both there was no it was equal, each, such as Adam and Eve. We see that everything happened to them the same, and that is how we have to be. Is that if they're gonna be well, we have to be one. We have to be one, physically, and that is why, when our role is understood, and a person who is a yoke has finally been identified and is going to unite with that person in front of the eternal, it must be understood that this union is meant till the death separates them, just like Yeshua said, and which is not to make a carnal union, but also a spiritual union. So when we have, or when we're gonna or when we're gonna unite with another person, we have to have the mentality that that or the mentality that it's something serious, that we cannot be playing games, that we cannot unite with someone and then something doesn't work out and then we want to divorce them and go and unite with someone else. That isn't how it works, because the person, how I had mentioned before, the person who we unite with is someone, or we're gonna be united till the death separates us. And that's why when we are going to unite with someone, we have to think it. Not only do we have to be mature, not only do we have to make the right decision with who we're going to get united with, or with who we're going to unite with, we have to be very mature about that, because then later on we cannot be saying, or we cannot be thinking or wishing that, oh, I wish, that I would have been mature, and I would have been mature and made the right decision, because later on we could regret who the person whom we've united with. And what we also see, for example, in today's youth, that today's youth does not admire, or does not want to accomplish that unity with another person. We see that some young girls end up pregnant, and because of that they have to unite with this with the guy who got her pregnant, and then later on turns out that they didn't like each other, that they didn't end up liking each other, and they're not together, and then they have a kid, and then so on, they have different kids and so forth. And well, and this happens because I had said before, because the role of the woman, or the woman does not complete its role, and the man doesn't complete its role of being the head of the house, the head of the family, because it doesn't want to, such as men and women, they don't want to take responsibility of a, or they don't want to have that they don't want to have that, what is it called, they don't want to have that or they just don't want a serious, or they don't want to have that commitment into each other. They want to live their separate lives, and they want to do whatever they want with their lives. And that's something that we see in today's youth, and not just in today's youth, also in grown-ups already. We see that, they're like already 40 something, 50 something, and they're still dating, they're still living their life like they were young, like they're young people, and in reality they're not. And well, that is something that we have to take care of ourselves, and we have to think about a lot, that we have to complete that role that the Eternal gave us, such as men and women. And we have not only to complete it, but to be mature, so that when we want to unite, or that when we want to unite with another person, with our opposite gender, not our same gender, our opposite gender, that we are prepared, that we are not as a woman, to not only be prepared to unite with the men, but to know how to cook, to know how to clean, that we are prepared to form a family, to educate our children the correct way. Not, for example, I wasn't educated, or I wasn't raised the correct way. I was raised in the system. So we have to prevent that. When we have children, we have to not raise them uneducated, or we don't have to raise them in the system. We have to raise them out of the system. And the men has to be prepared to sustain its family, to sustain, so that everything that there's food in the house, that there is for the kids, that they need clothes. They have to make sure that they have, or that they could sustain their family. And well, this is all for today's video. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope it helped you, or it clarified some things. If some questions that you had, I would recommend you guys to, or for more deeper information, or if you guys want to inform yourself more about being prepared for the unity, and how to prepare yourself for the unity, and what should we expect from the unity, or stuff like that, I would recommend you guys to listen to the playlist on the channel Cielos Nuevos en Tierra Nueva, in the playlist created, or Creados para Ser Uno, created to be one. And you guys could hear that playlist. It is we learn a lot. You can learn a lot from it, and it answers a lot of our questions, or a lot of your questions. And well, that is all for today's video. I hope you guys could have a good day, and shalom.